You hear us, Michael?
Yeah, we're live.
Well, good morning. We're only about 7, 8 minutes late getting back on. We've been waiting for you, Michael. You've been having fun?
He's probably still listening to the house.
Echoes.
Oh, there he is.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Senate Natural doesn't know how to read a clock. So
And on that, we'd have called you earlier.
I don't think the doc on the website is the right doc. I think I might have sent under the wrong doc this morning.
We have
No,
draft 3.1 printed out.
I haven't put on the.
Oh, okay,
what you
okay,
just said.
okay. All right, sure. Okay.
Yeah, we have, yes. Today's the 6th. Yeah, you sent it yesterday, Michael, in 3.1.
Yep. I sent you a copy yesterday, Chair.
Yeah. And so we'll run through those changes and then you'll get back to natural resources. We don't wanna
I could stay here.
We don't want to detain you. But anyways, you want to run through those changes and
Sure.
yes.
So on page 2, there's a new subsection C being added to address the concerns of this program having a streamlined application. So the board shall develop a short, accessible, and easily completed application form for the purpose of the applications under the section. The board shall simplify and streamline this process for review and approval of applications under the section. That first sentence is pretty common. The agencies usually are required to provide a form. The second sentence, there are provisions in statute, but not as common as the form requirement, where an entity is directed to have a streamlined process for application. So I don't think either one of those requirements is novel. I think that they are both things that statute already requires for different programs. The next change is in the definition of farm products. And this on line 8 is highlighted in blue because I don't know if this is what you want or not. The agency came in yesterday and expressed concern about how the way farm products were defined here could potentially trigger Act 250 jurisdiction because currently farming, the products that are sold from an accessory on-farm business, they had to be principally produced on the farm. And so I amended the definition of farm products means products principally produced by a small farmer from crops or livestock. But I don't think that was what the agency was looking for. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for.
Do we need that principally produced in there?
Well, it puts the question of
Principally, maybe just the word principally.
Well, it goes back to the agency's concern about farm stands, which Steve described one aspect of the farm stand issue. The other aspect of the farm stand issue is what's called the blueberry muffin problem. So currently, farming is defined as the sale of agricultural products principally produced on the farm. So, and it's specific to individual farms. So as Steve said yesterday, you can't sell your neighbor's maple syrup if you're selling more than 50%, if more than 50% of the maple syrup you sell is from your neighbor's farm. But there's also the blueberry muffin problem. And that is, say you are a blueberry grower and you sell blueberry muffins as well, but you're not getting the flour from your farm. You're not getting the baking powder, the baking soda, the lemon, anything else you put into your blueberry muffins. You don't get it from your farm. The question then becomes, is that product by weight or volume principally produced on the farm? Technically, no, it's not.
Weight and volume, you don't do it by the price of the item?
No, under Act 250 and the Act 250 rules, it's by weight or volume of the product. So that's the blueberry muffin problem. That's another aspect of the principally produced issue. Now, the NRB and the jurisdictional opinions haven't really been enforcing the blueberry muffin issue. They've been going and saying, all right, if the products in your farm stand right now, if more than 50% of them were produced on your farm, we're going to not get into the blueberry muffin issue. But the blueberry muffin issue, like if that was the only thing you were selling in your farm stand when the Act 250 jurisdictional officer showed up, you could have an issue. And so I don't know what you want to do about it. That
maybe we could eliminate the Act 250 inspectors.
That's a very poor policy. So.
See, yesterday when we were talking about this, I thought they would, of course, maple syrup is what, 11 pounds or so to a gallon. So the weight would make a difference if you brought up 1,000 pounds of the neighbor's syrup. That means you'd have to have 1,200 pounds or 1,100 pounds or 1,001 pounds of produce, right? To be over the limit.
I think they would probably look at maple syrup on a volume basis. You know, what the volume of your syrup sold versus the volume of your neighbor's syrup.
So we have to have that principally.
Well, it's that principally produced as part of the statutory definition of farming under both Act 250 and under the RAPs. So if you're going to get rid of principally produced, you have to realize the consequences that may have.
Well, I wouldn't get rid of principally produced. It would just mean products produced by a small farm. Is there a reason farm products means products produced by a small farm? There are other areas that you would still use principally produced, but in this particular bill, we couldn't use just a simple term and leave principally out.
That's what the language you saw yesterday did, and the agency expressed concern about that, and specifically with regard on page 1, line 18 of authorizing these grants for development of accessory on-farm businesses. The accessory on-farm businesses are allowed under municipal zoning, so it provides that municipalities can't zone away an accessory on-farm business. But an accessory on-farm business is not farming. So it's still regulated by Act 250. So the concern is that if the agency is going to give a grant for an accessory on-farm business, that it may not be for something within it may still trigger Act 250 jurisdiction. So I don't know if adding principally produced on line 1 or line 8 on page 2 really addresses the agency's question. I'm just I don't know, trying to address their concern. I don't know if I actually did address their concern or your intent.
I don't know, committee have any comments? See, I mean, if you were a small operator and you read this, this is for, low maple, plants grown for food or all that. You read down through the list. But it says farm products means products produced by a small farm.
Right.
Or
So
a small farm. It would
if
make
you
it more general.
if you really want to address the agency's concern, you would just say that the grants aren't going to be for developing an accessory on-farm business. And then you wouldn't need principally produced. You would just say farm products mean products produced by a small farmer from X. And actually, I'd probably rework that a little bit. But if you take the accessory on-farm business issue away, then you don't need the principally produced language. So I what the agency was saying yesterday is they want a farmer to be able to sell at their farm stand products from multiple farms within the neighboring locale. And that's what runs you into the principally produced issue. That really likely would not be allowed under Act 250 today. So I don't know how you want to address that, or if you want to address that in this bill.
Well, farm accessory businesses, I mean, there's a guy down central or southern Vermont that wanted to build a big restaurant or something. Well,
Right.
That's a little different than what we're talking about. Instead of having 6 small farm stands along a road or within a neighborhood, they resort to one and commingle their stuff. It cuts down, the travel and the chasing around and the labor and the whole 9 yards. And we're trying to clean up the environment, and it would make more sense to me if you had a guy down on a corner, where 2 state routes meet, and they wanted to set up a joint little farm stand. It would make more sense to do that and have 6 of them scattered all around the town.
So I was thinking that you might be thinking that way. And so yesterday afternoon, I went through a bunch of different states to see how they address this issue. For example, in New Hampshire, in the New Hampshire Model Municipal Ordinance, it provides that at least 35% of the product sales in dollar volume is attributable to products from the farm or farms of the farm stand owner. So that would allow for other products or products from other farms to be sold. They do have a kind of a list of products that they say are authorized from other farms: garden accessories, cheese, home crafts, cut flowers, dried flowers, value-added products, and baked goods. But it's an including but not limited to. So I think you basically could sell, in New Hampshire's model ordinance, you could sell up to 65% of any of your dollar volume from products from other farms. Dollar volume is kind of a weird term. Maybe gross sales would be better, but
Well,
and then
we could
then in
have a full employment for an accountant then.
right, and then in Texas, they specifically list out like the long list of what could be sold at the farm stand, including things like vinegar. But then they put a $50,000 cap on the gross income from the farm stand. So it can be from other farms, but you can't sell more than 50 grand from your farm stand.
That would,
That's in a season, right? Or in a year, is that what it is?
No, it's an annual gross income of 50 grand.
did you sit through our hearing with Fish and Game on the liability insurance stuff?
On the compensation for wildlife damage?
Yeah,
No, I wasn't there for the hearing, but you asked me to look into how other states do it, and I have done that.
what I'm getting at is they had to, or gonna have to pay out a claim of $200,000 from one vegetable or small produce grower. So our $50,000 limit, if they sold it all from their farm stand, would shut them down in a hurry.
Yep. So other states cap the award, and it varies from state to state. And some states say that the farmer can't. They only get one opportunity for reimbursement. So
On the liability stuff.
right. So if the bear comes in the fall and then comes in the spring or summer, you don't get two reimbursements. You get one, and you have to pick which one. And some states have a time period. You have to apply within like 45 days so that the warden can come out and do an assessment of whether or not it was caused by the bear or not, or any. And out west, it's things like it's cougars and wolves and elk. So it differs sometimes depending on the animal.
Yeah, we haven't done anything really other than have people in from USDA and stuff on that issue, but we're gonna have to deal with it. But I'd like to get this 205. What, you guys don't have an opinion on?
I'm just trying to remember what was in the original bill, Michael, with respect to this?
To respect to a
The
small
definition-
farmer
Yeah,
selling products of other farmers.
well, I don't know that it referenced that. I'm just, what definition was in the original bill of farm products?
On line 8?
Yeah.
It's similar. It was similar, but it's not the same. So it had said farm products mean the following products: crops grown, growing, or to be grown, including that list, livestock. And then it said there was a subdivision C that said products produced from crops or livestock. So it wasn't limited to principally produced.
So
That's
that limited it to just the farmer. and not any sort of farm stand.
Right, because when you go back to page 1, lines 14 through 16, where the term farm products is used, it's farm products produced by the applicant or farm products on the farm owned or controlled by the applicant. So it was about the farm products on that farm.
Maybe that's the way to go.
Open it up.
Yeah.
More general, but we're gonna get in a mess.
We're gonna get in an Act 250 mess. If we go back to the original language, then we don't have to drop off the on-farm accessory business either. That could still remain in as long as it's done just by the person that in essence is applying for the grant.
Well, that is something you need to talk to Steve Collier about, because that's the language that he expressed concern about yesterday. I think you eliminate all concerns by saying that the grant wouldn't be allowed for accessory on-farm businesses.
We,
But I don't know if that's your intent.
No.
or hotel. I mean, the guy down there that built the little tiny houses,
Yeah, the spaghetti one.
on one, remember he was gonna have to use 2 acres for every tiny house?
Yes.
And it made no sense, so we opened it up so you could put 5 on 1 acre.
Yeah.
Or 1 acre, but you'd have to take out 1 lot. I don't know about accessory businesses.
Trying to think of one that a single person would, well, farms.
So here are some examples of accessory on-farm businesses: distilleries, soap makers, cheese makers. Somebody wants to make juices, like canned carbonated juices. Those are all accessory on-farm businesses because you're using products from the farm for all of them.
Right.
But it may not qualify as an agricultural product principally produced on the farm.
So what's our decision point? What are we trying to just help me out here?
Well, help the small guy without running afoul of the 250.
Right.
provisions.
Right.
And address Steve's concerns, right, yesterday?
Yeah, his was mostly
Yeah.
about the 250.
Yeah,
And a lot of these small farms, did you take the 50% income out of that?
Yeah.
Yep, you can see on the bottom of page 2, going on to page 3, the definition of small farmer no longer has either of those two
That 50%.
50% income provision.
They're constantly thinking of ways that both parties can stay home and work off the farm.
right,
Or
right.
work
Like
on
we
the
talked about
farm.
yesterday, yeah.
And if you tie the hands too tight, where they can't sell stuff from the farm or grow stuff that then they can sell, there's gonna have to always be one of them having to work off the farm to earn enough money to survive. That we're trying to allow families to come back together and both work at
Yeah,
home.
yeah, to diversify and do different things, yeah.
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 So. I don't know where the heck we are. Irene.
Thank you. I was thinking earlier about this idea of like having a retail store on the premises, and I don't know about you guys, but the farm stands I see are like drop your quarters in here and pick up a bag of kale. So I don't know if there's some way you can talk about the exchange and what makes a store versus a farm stand, or if that's helpful at all to this.
Like yours, very
You wanna go get flowers, you leave $5 in the box,
rustic.
I don't know.
Yes, and what we talk, or we mostly concerned with, I've got my farm stand, the neighbor's gonna bring over their syrup and sell it.
Right.
I know it isn't fun. I would just exempt farms from them, but I know that would cause a firestorm to do that.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So his earlier idea, and I know it's clunky, but if you said, if you don't sell more than $100,000 worth of stuff, you're exempt. That doesn't exempt
From what?
Act 250.
Act 250.
Oh, Jesus, you mentioned that name and you've got a war.
I know, but I mean, what do I do?
Well, it's interesting, because if you're bringing $100,000,
Or
you've got
50.
a real
50,
operation.
like Texas.
Yeah, but, or 50 or,
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
throwing
a
out
lot,
a number.
right, a lot of these places are bringing in, yes,
Right, because they're selling to other people. This is just for your neighbor.
I only, and you know, pick
Yeah, no, I
any
know,
number if you
yeah, I know
want,
what
but
you're
just give them a number so the small guys are out.
Or
I can't
limit,
think of a farm
Limit
stand
at
that I've ever
dollar.
been to in Vermont that is anything but rustic.
limit it to the dollar amount you can bring in to sell.
Yeah, it just,
And see how that works.
And
If
see
it's
how it
terrible,
works,
then
and
you
get-
will revisit.
I want the little guy not to have to,
Jump through 50.
Right.
Right,
To sell $10,000 worth of
that's exactly what
work
I'm
they
saying.
spent $20,000
To
to
build
build.
something.
Right, and maybe the syrup draws them to the stand where they actually buy the kale that was grown by the farmer who lives there, but I think it's all good.
So how do we put that on paper, Michael?
So you want that to be exempted from Act 250? Is
Well,
that correct?
it'd be permissible. Why don't we put it in a positive way rather than being exempt from something? It would be permissible for a small farm to sell up to X dollars of produce from their farm.
So, okay, the way I would do that I would recommend doing that is in the definition of farming under Act 250, 10 VSA 6001, you have a couple of options. Subdivision 22. So where the definition says farming includes agricultural products principally produced on the farm, you could say something like agricultural products sold from the farm, provided that X, whatever cap you want to put on the products from off the farm. For example, in Oregon, no more than 25% of the annual sales can be from products off the farm. Whereas in that New Hampshire ordinance, it was 65%. So you have a choice there. And then I would say, or you could say, you could leave the principally produced on-site storage, preparation and sale of agricultural products principally produced on the farm, provided that a person operating a farm may sell X, percent of agricultural products produced off the farm. So I think you have some options there.
Um,
But I don't hear the Texas example from what you just said, Michael. Are you backing off that?
The Texas example is the $50,000 gross
Right.
annual sale. And to me, to me, that's another option. Do you go by a percentage of sales from the farm stand or an actual income cap?
And then cap, a small farm isn't gonna have a too high a cap, but seems like no greater than 50,000 or something like in that neighborhood. And then if it ever got developed where they needed more, they'd come to whoever's in our places here and say, you know, we're bumping up against selling, I don't know if that 50 is the right number, but up against a certain number and we should try to raise that. Or if we really wanted to make it comfortable for our colleagues, you could even have it lower than 50, you know, because hell, the little farms, those that we just talked about, those little rustic or farm stands where you drop your own money in. I doubt they'd ever, for a small farm, would ever even get above $30,000 or 20.
3,000.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, but it just seems like, is there a definition of a farm stand?
There is one definition of farm stand. It's in I can't even remember what. It's in the raw milk. It's in the raw milk chapter. And it means a site on a farm that is subject to the RAPs where agricultural products principally produced on the farm are sold to the public.
So will people say on the floor, okay, could this be a building, a 5,000 square foot building based on that definition?
So there is no limit anywhere on agricultural structures, right? Because agricultural structures are exempt from municipal zoning.
Okay,
So if it's a farm structure / agricultural structure, it's exempt from municipal zoning. And so there's no square footage limit. Your farm stand can be pretty big.
Just be a fridge. When I go get my milk every week, it's a fridge and you put your money in the door.
Yeah,
I mean,
in the
it's really
jar.
primitive. It's not even a building. It's not even stands.
but I don't know of any very large. I mean, if you're setting up a fresh veggie stand, you're usually like a retail seller. And then you jump through all the, I don't know if I've ever seen a farm stand that looked really like a retail.
Not in Vermont. I've seen it in Pennsylvania. I haven't seen it
Yeah,
here.
but not
So there are some farms that they don't call their stands, they call them stores. The on-farm store, and you know, I'm not going to use any particular name, but it's a small house-sized building. And
Most of the time around here, it's vegetables.
right.
So pickup truck, flowers.
Yeah, somebody sells
Someone out of
corn.
pickup.
But remember, you're encouraging farmers to diversify, and that means they're doing livestock, they're doing flowers, they're doing herbs, they're doing produce, they're doing maple, they're doing honey. You know, some farms are doing all of that.
I just say for me, at this point, I just want to set the precedence that it's all right for somebody, a couple of neighbors to come together to sell.
Right.
And I think the most important thing we can do right now is set a precedence.
So what
Whether it should be a dollar amount or a percentage. And I'm favoring the percentage only because well, I don't want to load the dice here, but it might be harder to track for someone that had a real interest in undoing what we're trying to do. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way, but you know what I'm saying?
I'm
36%. Well, how do you prove that?
My God, if people are having those conversations.
Well,
Yeah, no, I, you know. How much did you say?
whereas the dollar, you gotta account for that at some point somewhere, and
Well, most people would be doing their
Irene, you-
taxes at the end of the year, and if it's, you know,
Yeah, well, we hadn't better get into that discussion. I'm sure Irene buys her milk using her credit card.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
Track it.
she pays cash when she buys rights.
But,
I take cash for my eggs, just so you know.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll take a check in state, otherwise I'm dead.
We
other
figured
than
you took
check, you take
cash.
credit card. You don't take any cash because it's too hard to keep track of that and report it.
He reports everything.
So, principally produced means majority on 51% on the farm.
Yeah, I can read you the definition of principally produced if you want.
Well, let's hear it.
So for purposes of 600122E, which is farming, that more than 50% either by volume or weight of the ingredients or materials contributing to a final agricultural product or product is stored, prepared, or sold at the farm, is grown or produced on the farm. So more than 50% by volume or weight of the ingredients or materials need to be produced on the farm.
So that leaves 50% that could come from somewhere else, or 49. 0.9. Well, that probably opens it up as wide as we could open it, because if you put a dollar amount, it's really a bummer to track down.
So okay, I think I could work with that so that the farm can sell 49% of the product sold at a farm stand can be from off the farm.
Like from a neighbor. What we would explain this as is a neighbor that lives further up a dirt road or something that's difficult to get to could bring their farm products down, or you could join together with 2 or 3 neighbors maybe, and you wouldn't, as long as you stayed under what you're selling yourself, you'd be all fine and legal.
Okay.
You're talking about monetary value now, or number of products, or how, or weight of volume?
Weight and volume.
Okay, because kale weighs a lot less than syrup, and you could sell a ton of kale of your own farm, but compared to the maple syrup from down the road.
He said you do it by volume.
So I don't think doing it by weight or volume for a farm stand really achieves your purpose. I think you would want to say 49% of the products sold by the farm stand can be from off the farm.
Should we say from other farms? Because technically you could run down to, never mind, I'm opening another door.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that's a good point. So you're not selling, squirt guns.
Well,
Yeah,
Frisbee?
or frisbees, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
seeing though that we're talking about trying to enhance small farms, why not put other small farms?
Right there.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
I hate to, we're on the floor at 11:30.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow,
Yeah,
so
we have
we're
four.
good today. Oh, I was gonna let you check out, Michael, so you could get back to your other work, but we're still, we don't have to go on till 1, so we can work right up to noon if you've got time.
Sure.
Get this wrapped up so we can get a final version of it eventually. Irene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm still a little confused when you say the number of items. Does that mean like 3 kinds of syrup versus 10 kinds of kale? Or do you mean like kale versus syrup? Like, I'm just, when you say number of items and types of items, I'm just curious what that means. Make sure that's what we wanted.
Well, I would assume.
I mean, there's Swiss chard and there's rainbow chard, right? But there's only one kind of syrup, but maybe there's maple caramel, which is not the syrup, but it's a syrup product, right? I don't know.
So, when you say like 51% has to be principally produced on the farm, how do you do that by volume, Michael?
For example, when they went out and looked at one of the manure producers on a farm, they literally broke down the inputs to the manure. Like how much was cow manure from the farm, how much was chicken manure from off the farm, how much of the carbon feedstock was from the farm or off the farm, etc.
Fun job.
Why we think people do these jobs, right?
So.
But I think Senator Renner's point is actually a very nuanced point, because are you going to get into a argument about whether or not what is being sold from the other farm is an agricultural product or not? And it may be easier to just have a sales number, provided that more than 50% of the sales of agricultural products are agricultural products produced on your farm, and up to less than 50% of the agricultural products sold from the farm, maybe from other small farms. Something.
Yeah, that might work. I don't see why that wouldn't work. If you get into Christmas trees and maple syrup, I mean, you're talking, real,
That's a fast.
and some farms grow a few Christmas trees. Some can't grow Christmas trees, too wet or something. You want to try something like that, Michael?
Right, I can, and I would do it by income or sales.
Maybe,
What's the difference?
maybe for sale.
Sale, okay. So of the annual sales,
Yeah.
okay.
So that gets us down to line 16, I think.
Did the House do all this work on this bill? Did it take them that long?
They took a while. They spent some time on this bill.
Yeah.
There's a lot more again.
So we got rid of an or down there?
Yeah,
Added an or?
it had been an and.
Yeah.
And then you, in subdivision 2, you removed the 50% income
Yeah.
provisions under IRS code or under farming defined by the state. And then in the confidentiality of financial information, you just made some changes requested by the agency. So tax return and related financial documents, correspondence, and substantiating forms are submitted by an applicant to the Working Lands Board shall be exempt from public inspection and copying under the PRA. And then you have the question of, you asked me to find out from JFO whether ARPA funds were available instead of general funds. And I talked to Sarah Clark about that, and Sarah said that all of the ARPA funds were allocated in fiscal year 2023, but they have not all been expended. And so they're in the process of reviewing whether or not any of the allocated money can be used for other purposes because it won't be used for its original allocation. But she said that's hard to do right now because the ARPA funds can be used up until 2026. And so even though funds have been allocated but have not been expended yet, they may be expended within that 2026 timeline. So kind of her takeaway is that there's nothing that they could commit right now from ARPA with any surety.
No, but could we put that, could we put language in there that would state, funds of 350,000 or one-time funds, if available,
Sure.
could be used or from the general fund.
Okay.
So
So if available from ARPA, or if not available from ARPA from the general fund?
yeah,
The only thing I'll say, if I'm remembering Steve Collier's testimony from yesterday, once you get involved with the ARPA funding, there's restrictions and requirements that might not be in place with just general funds. I'm fine either way, but I'd hate for somebody to apply for it thinking that they're gonna get ARPA funds and then find out, well, there's 3 other things you gotta do to get that approved there, and then we're back to square one. I don't know whether it was a big deal or not.
would that be set up in the app?
Possibly. They could screen for that.
But also, it's very narrow, right?
It's much more limited.
Well,
Yeah.
More reporting and more.
Yeah.
Do you have any inclination, Michael, about?
I do think it kind of undermines the provision you added yesterday that there be a transparent and easily accessible application form with a streamlined application process, because from my understanding, it's not very streamlined.
We heard talk today about a 19-page application.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it took Richie all last summer to fill that out.
My question for you, Michael, is we're creating this now. We're going to leave this language in statute going forward. So this is not just a pilot going forward. We're fixated right now on ARPA, but in the future, I would think that we would be amenable to any funds, state or federal, to fund this that made sense. And is there a way to just leave the language a little vaguer and but leave the flexibility in the future to use either state or federal funds that were appropriated to this?
Well, we could,
Well, because I totally understand your point, but I think the language that's in the bill already kind of addresses it, because it says one-time funds are appropriated in fiscal year 2024. So and going into the future, whether or not it's going to be one-time or base, I still think that's the flexibility of the General Assembly. But it's a good point, and I because the appropriation session law, I don't think you're binding the program to use of ARPA or general fund or any future fund. I think that's still the General Assembly's discretion.
what about using the term federal funds instead of available federal funds rather than using the term ARPA funds?
I think, but would it still be from available federal funds? And if federal funds are available from the general fund? Or just you want to just start from available federal funds and then see what your other committee does with that language?
I think we have to have or state funds. You know, to get the discussion going down there, because Jane will say, well, wait, go with the federal funds, and if there are some, okay, and if there aren't, tough luck.
Yeah, I know.
I'd really like to have both.
I think initially we want to appropriate money.
Yeah.
1 year back, right? So,
State or federal.
Okay,
Yeah. I think we better have both in there. The pile keeps getting higher. I don't know, we're near the top though, because she don't tip them over and put them in there.
Just, you know,
and is the dollar amount 350? Is that, you were talking a little bit yesterday about a different dollar amount. I just wanted to confirm it's 350.
Well,
Trying to avoid a fight.
that's what the House put in, right?
Yep, exactly.
We may as well leave it there. I mean, we talked about lowering it. Well, that's just one more fight, or if we up it, it'll be one more fight. We'll leave it the same.
Okay.
That's pretty much it, or you,
That's pretty much it. I want to go back to the farm products sold off the farm. Do you want it just for that program, or do you want it industry-wide for everything, and where that would have a repercussion? So for Act 250, do you want it under Act 250, or do you just want it under this program?
I thought we wanted it just under this program.
yeah, we want to keep it as simple and tight as possible.
Okay,
sounds like
okay. All right. Okay. I don't know if that will address Steve Collier's concern. Because Act 250 would still apply, and that was a large part of his concern yesterday. But if you would like, I can draft the language and send it to Steve and ask him to comment on whether it addresses
That's it, the way we just talked about.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that would be fine. But I'm not gonna take this out and get in a brawl upstairs over the farmer.
Act 250, got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're just trying to help these little guys survive, rather than coming and us trying to bail them out. Because we've got some very capable young people that are buying these little farms, and we ought to give them all the help to sell their products as we can. Yeah. Other question?
the first money I ever made, really on my own by myself. We planted extra sweet corn and I, sold it down the road off the neighbor's farm. I sold
You
sweet
broke
corn.
the law right off.
Yeah,
the-
geez,
So I must have,
So much to
I
do.
must have broke the law.
Unbelievable.
And so.
Is it too late to have this investigated?
I don't.
Statute
I
of
don't think
limitations.
so.
I think I was at 12 or 13.
We could have her.
I'm illegal.
It'll go to juvenile court.
Right.
We could have our chief investigate
Well, he's
that.
got that car, he could drive around.
Jeez,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
could drive
He
it
could drive right over there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Put the light go on the side.
Yeah.
When are you leaving today, just in case he needs to talk to you?
I'm just sitting here going. I'm glad we're doing and everything, but it just
You
seems so
just start,
foolish.
you just better get legalized.
We live in a litigious society.
Good.
But it's a little
Paycheck.
much.
How much extra do you make off your paycheck with your corn?
Oh, I can't remember. I did make a few $100s.
Oh, your paycheck is probably 10. So,
I don't think it was even that then. I was considered slave labor.
And he bought a bike with a banana seat.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes, I did.
That I had.
I
I
had
think I
one
might have
too.
carried the corn down the road with a bike.
That's right.
Okay, so I
Thank you.
we're in pretty good shape on this one, once you get it drafted up, Michael.
Okay,
And
Great.
then on H 270, that's in economic development. Bren, that used to work with you guys and Pepper and Michelle that works in judiciary. There's a list of items that the cannabis growers presented to us. And I was wondering if you might have time to, I guess, check with Michelle and there's going to be a list of several different changes to the cannabis law that we would, and they're going to agree, that need to be updated. And then what we would do in ag is send that language over to Allison over in economic development from ag to, because they have control of the bill. So we would just send the amendments over and they would load it into their bill H 270. So we end up moving it from one committee to the other committee and lose days there because we haven't got, if you count the days up, we haven't got that many left. And would you want to give Michelle a call and you might have
sure.
to meet with them, Michael?
They actually emailed me while I was testifying to you all,
Oh, so I talked to them earlier and I kind of like to have you doing our amendments or changes rather than switching to a different draft.
that's fine, that's fine. I think Michelle would appreciate that.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. We'll see you later on.
All right, have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. So I don't, Linda, did you make copies of those things for the committee? The issues that John,
No, I did not. I will.
would you guys like that so that you can see what?
It's on your webpage, I believe. Well, I'm not sure.
What issues, what bill are we talking about?
H 270, it's a cannabis bill that's in economic development.
We don't have our computers.
And when John Rogers testified,
Oh, that John.
Earlier.
Oh, yeah, that was wild.
he had
Yeah, the letter that he gave us,
like
right?
20 different things
Yeah.
on the
Those haven't
concern.
changed?
Well, some of those things we could do and wouldn't upset the way things are running, because, and then they, you know, there's a tier 1, 2, and 3. Look, farmers or small growers can go to tier 1. But I think Pepper and them want to do away with tier 3 and open more of tier 2s up so that these little guys that got started on 1,000 square feet could move up. And that, then what we may have to do is do an exemption for them through current use. But that, we'll see how that goes with this bill. But he says that that the little guys are a little too little, 1,000 square feet. And what the other size would be, tier 2, would be about as big as I think he said half basketball court. Yeah.
That's not very bad.
No, it's still pretty good. Well, it's gotta be bigger, 10,000. Goes from 1,000 to 5 to 10.
Sounds right.
But even 5,000 feet is small.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about it, we have houses bigger than
Right,
that.
right.
You know, I mean, you
Sears
gotta
is-
have,
Sears
your
is-
house gotta be big.
Sears's place is about 10,000 square feet, so yeah, so you're talking about half of Sears's house.
Whose
We've
house?
got 20 or 30,000.
Get out of here.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a, don't they call it the mansion?
I should take a picture of it just to put all these legends to rest. Oh, thank you.
My grandparents had a pretty nice place in the old house.
Yeah.
Like built in 1915 or 20. And when they both passed, I tried to talk my wife into
Moving it in.
buying that. And she didn't want any part of that thing.
Not too big.
She wanted a new house.
No, we already had a new house
She wanted to
up
stay.
in the country, and I wanted to move
Into town.
down there in the town a while. It's short as you go out of town.
But, and why did
She didn't
she?
want any part, well, she said those big high ceilings
Yeah.
and, you know, it's got tin ceilings. in
Oh,
it,
really?
And I said, well,
Good job, Jimmy.
well, then you got those, yeah, that one. And then the bedrooms were all upstairs but one. And, but my cousin, so my,
Oh, they bought it?
uh,
Did you keep it in the family? Did your
oh,
cousins?
yeah.
Oh, that's good.
cousin,
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
and, but she didn't want to have any part of it, so. But he keeps it, you know, it's got roofs like this and,
It's a lot of work.
yeah, and porches, he redid all the porches, which we would have had to have done. Okay, so any,
No,
we've got 270 and 205 and one, the 165, Brian, will, yeah, they had, you know, this.
Oh, yeah.
University.
Yeah.
News.
Yeah. We'll just keep working together.
Yeah, we don't need to bring that in, I don't see any
Well, if you
reason.
even want to have a pass through, just
we
let me
just did it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you want, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, we could put that in the record.
You guys can say you looked at it, or,
Yeah.
I did get asked by Fish and Wildlife Commissioner that we keep our eye on that liability issue, the crop damage and all that. I don't know what we can do about it, but if they'd like it to get off their plate, get them off the hook.
Well, there doesn't seem to be any federal program
No,
Yeah,
we
we-
talked to Roberts, right, that day,
Yeah, and, I've heard back last week, right, we checked with John Roberts.
He said he'd call when he heard, but yeah.
I mean, there is.
But the only other thing we could do is, cap it down lower.
Then you're kind of hurting the farmer though, I don't know.
Yeah, but it was never there, 5,000-10,000, he said, and, and they could handle it. But 200 grand,
No, I know.
that's a heck of a lot.
Should we have him come back in and suggest a number, or should we just do it? I mean, I don't know what a fair number is, 10,000 enough?
Well, they don't do bear. And we did have testimony that, the federal programs, farmers got very little, when bear going and roll and flatten their corn down.
Yeah. Anyway, as long as it's kind of stored in our minds.
Because they'd like to get something, either reduce it or do away with it. I don't want to do away with it without an alternative. And I don't think we got the resources to do an alternative. So the only other thing we could do is put a cap on it at a certain no greater than, which I think we could sell that to our colleagues, and explain that we haven't heard back from the feds yet, so we don't know where the farmers could go, but unless it changes in the next week or two.
Yes.
But I don't, $200,000. I mean, when you think about it, if you grew that many vegetables, well, to get the $200,000, you'd have to pick them. You'd have to wash them. You'd have to take out any damage or disease. I mean, I think the retail price or the wholesale price would be a lot different than the retail price, and I don't know if we asked him.
Yeah.
Did we ask him, Irene, if
I
it
don't
was
think so.
retail or wholesale, he paid the 200?
I didn't think I'd seen.
Pretty sure it was fruit too.
I thought the federal took care of everything, multi-peril, insects, weather.
Not deer. At least, that's why they went to
That's why they came.
Chris Herrick.
Yeah. Right there.
Or they just didn't have federal insurance. I mean,
Well-
that's the other thing, you just didn't have federal crop insurance.
We could have Commissioner in and talk to him tomorrow, because if he can come, because we haven't got much on the schedule.
Got 5 or 10 would do it.
And I think, when did we check with John, about if he'd heard anything?
Earlier this week, I called him.
Yeah, so, and he said he'd let us know as soon as he hears something. Anything else that we got dangling that?
Nope.
So, we'll adjourn the meeting and